The dust in Oshodi rose like smoke when the convoy stopped. 4 shiny black SUVs lined up in front of a small, crowded compound where clothes hung on ropes and children chased one another with plastic bottles. Doors clicked open. Men in black suits stepped out first, hands by their sides, eyes sharp. Then a tall man in a fine navy suit climbed down from the middle SUV. The whole street went quiet. Neighbors froze on their verandas. Someone dropped a bucket. A tailor left her machine running. And Sophia, simple dress, worn slippers, hair tied back after work at the bank, stood by the gate, hugging herself and squinting into the bright evening light. The tall man looked straight at her, like he had come for no one else in the world. He walked across the dusty ground that stained the tips of his polished shoes. The suits fanned around him, but kept their distance. The neighbors whispered, "Who is he? A governor? A star?" A baby began to cry, and someone hushed the child as if the crying itself might break the moment. The tall man stopped in front of Sophia. His voice was soft, but it carried. "You chose to be different when others ignored me," he said. "You were kind. You were real." Sophia's mouth parted. A strange memory flashed in her mind, the smell of jollof rice, the clink of a plastic bottle of water, a man with a tattered brown coat, mud stains, a beard that looked like weeds, and his eyes. Those eyes. The man in the suit dropped to one knee on the dusty ground. Gasps burst from the balconies. He reached into his pocket. And we freeze there. Because this is not where the story begins. 3 days earlier, the city walked past a man no one wanted to see. He stood near a modern restaurant along a busy Lagos road, close to the place where buses coughed out smoke and new music drifted from shops. He wore a tattered brown coat stained with mud. His hair looked like it had never met a comb. His beard was wild and tangled. He held a paper cup. "Abeg, anything small," he said to the air, but the air did not answer. People hurried past him like wind around a stone. One man said, "Go and find work." A woman hissed and pulled her little child away. 2 boys laughed and said, "Look at this one." Someone bumped his shoulder. His cup barely moved. Under that tangled beard was Anderson Adeyemi, the billionaire no one recognized. By day he was the CEO of Adara Holdings, with a glass office that looked over the city. He signed papers, made calls, built companies, and broke limits. By night he stared at the ceiling and felt the heavy quiet of a home that had no laughter. The people he dated sparkled at dinners, but dimmed when the bills came. Their eyes lit up at gifts, not at him. When he removed the gold, their smiles faded like old paint. "How do I find someone who sees me?" He had asked the mirror, alone in his mansion with lights that never went off. He had an idea, strange, risky, simple. He would become the person people step over. He would dress like the kind of man they never want to look at. If someone still stopped, maybe that person was the truth. So he did. He grew a fake beard. He let his hair go wild. He wore a torn coat and scuffed shoes. He stood by that restaurant for 3 days. Day 1 hurt his pride. He felt people's eyes slide past him, like rain on a window. Day 2 scraped his heart. A group mocked him, lazy, and a driver threw an empty sachet at his feet. On day 3, the sun was greedy and hot, and the smell from the restaurant teased and refused him. He had decided he would stand there until sunset, and then go home, wash off the disguise, and call the experiment a failure. That was when she arrived. Sophia carried a white takeaway pack, warm enough to fog the plastic lid. Her bank ID still hung from her neck, twisted by the wind. She had waited 2 hours to buy food because she had sent most of her salary to help a cousin in school. Her slippers were tired. Her feet were tired. But her eyes were bright, even if you could see the kind of tired that sits behind the brightness. She almost did what everyone did. She almost walked past. Then she stopped. She saw the cup. She saw the mud. She saw something else too, those eyes. They were the eyes of someone who had seen a lot and said little. "Have you eaten today?" she asked. Anderson did not answer for a second. No one had asked him that simple question in 3 days. He forgot his plan. He forgot the world. He just stared. Sophia opened the pack. "It's jollof rice and chicken," she said, smiling a little, like she wasn't sure if he liked chicken. "And this?" She held out a cold bottle of water, beads of water running down the plastic like tiny rain. Anderson reached out with both hands, as if she was handing him a crown. Something happened to time. It stretched, it softened. The road noise faded. He felt the weight of the food, the cold of the bottle, and the warmth of a person who expected nothing back. Inside him, something froze, not the kind of cold that hurts, but the kind that stops a moment and keeps it safe forever. Thank you. He tried to say those words, but his throat felt too full. He took a slow breath. Please, can I have your number? I want to thank you later. Sophia glanced at the food, then at his face. Why not? She said. She spoke the way her late mother had taught. Her kindness does not ask for a reason, it becomes the reason. She typed her number on his small paper note with careful writing. Thank you, he said again, the words still too small for the feeling. Sophia waved with her fingers and walked into the bright street, balancing her empty hands like they were still carrying something. Anderson watched her go. His heart was loud. He took off his fake beard in the back alley because it suddenly felt like a lie between him and the air she had just breathed. He called her that evening at 7:14 p.m. Exactly, because his life was built on time and numbers. She picked on the second ring. Hello. Hi, it's Anderson, he said, choosing his real name, not the street one he had planned. You gave me food today. Oh, she said, her voice warm. Did you eat it? I did, he said. He had not. He had placed it on his kitchen counter, untouched, like a treasure he was afraid to use. Can I thank you in person? Silence for a heartbeat. The city spoke around her horns, vendors calling, a far-off joke that made someone laugh. All right, she said. Why not? Where do you live? He asked, feeling brave and careful at once. She gave him the address of her compound in Oshodi. She said it the way you talk about something small you are not ashamed of. She wondered why he asked, but her mother's voice lived in her mind like a song. People are people, but kindness is your name. When the call ended, Anderson stood in his quiet house and stared at his reflection. The man in the mirror looked like a stranger who had just met himself. He pressed the intercom. Prepare the cars, he told his head of security. We're going to Oshodi. He changed into a navy suit that sat on him like it had been borne on his shoulders. He wore no tie. He picked a ring box, though he did not open it. He did not plan anything crazy, only to say thank you, to return what he had taken in secret, a test he had made of the world. But when he stepped into the night and the convoy rolled through Lagos, something inside him said this was bigger than thanks. This was a beginning. The compound saw the SUVs before Sophia did. Children ran to the gate, shouting, "See, see!" Old men stood from their benches. A woman wiped her hands on her wrapper and whispered, "Jesus." In her room, Sophia looked at her phone again. Maybe she should not have given her address. Maybe she had made a mistake. But her mother's picture smiled from a small frame on the table, and a voice in her heart said, "Be brave, be kind, those two things hold each other." She stepped outside. Dust rose. Doors opened. Suits appeared. The tall man came down from the middle car, and all the sound of the compound became a soft hum behind a wall of surprise. Sophia's knees felt weak. She gripped the gate to keep from sitting down on the ground. The man's face was clean-shaven now, but his eyes, she knew those eyes. The neighbors moved closer, pulled by the strange gravity of the moment. He walked to her. "You chose to be different when others ignored me," he said. "You are kind. You are genuine." Her heart pounded like a drum at a festival. She swallowed. You were that man," she whispered. "By the restaurant." He smiled, and the smile was grateful and shy all at once. Then he did something no one expected. He went down on one knee, right there, on that dusty ground, in front of everyone. The street gasped as one body. His hand slid into his pocket. He opened his mouth to speak, and from the far end of the street, a voice suddenly shouted, "Stop! Anderson, wait!" The whole compound turned to see who had called out. The tall man on one knee looked up, his eyes narrowing, the words still on his tongue. The man who shouted, "Stop!" The moment the voice echoed, everything froze. Even the wind seemed to pause. Anderson turned his head slowly, still on one knee, dust clinging to the fine fabric of his navy trousers. The neighbors whispered louder now, unsure whether to gasp or laugh or simply watch. Children peeped from behind their mothers. A street vendor stopped pushing his cart of oranges and stared. From the far end of the compound gate, a middle-aged man ran toward them out of breath, sweating, his shirt half tucked, waving his arms as if to stop a train. "Wait! Wait, sir!" the man shouted again. "Please don't do this!" Sophia's heart jumped. She didn't even know this man. She looked at Anderson, confused, afraid something had gone wrong. Anderson slowly rose to his feet, the small black ring box still clutched in his hand. "Who are you?" Anderson asked, his voice calm but firm. The man stopped a few steps away, bending over to catch his breath. "I'm Mr. Bello," he said, straightening. "The landlord here." The crowd murmured. The name was familiar. Everyone in the compound knew Mr. Bello, the man who collected rent, who rarely smiled, and who often reminded everyone that his property was not for lazy people. He pointed at Sophia, still panting. "Sir, don't be deceived. She's just a small bank girl trying to survive. She owes me rent. 2 months. Don't let her fool you with all this innocent face." A cold silence spread through the air. Sophia's lips trembled. "Sir, please," she said softly. "I told you I'd pay next week." Mr. Bello didn't care. He looked at Anderson, his tone lowering into something slick. "You look like a rich man, sir. Maybe you don't know how people like her operate. They'll smile, act nice, but it's all strategy. These girls know how to trick good men." The words stabbed Sophia deeper than she expected. Tears filled her eyes, not because of the insult, but because everyone was watching. Anderson's gaze didn't shift. He stared at the man, his calmness turning sharp. "Is that all?" he asked. Mr. Bello blinked. "Excuse me," I said. "Is that all?" Anderson repeated quietly. "You ran all the way here to embarrass a woman who owed you rent." Mr. Bello's throat went dry. He opened his mouth, but the words didn't come. Anderson turned to Sophia. "Is what he said true?" Sophia swallowed hard. "Yes, I owed him, but only because my salary was delayed. I've never owed before. I promise I was going to pay." Anderson stepped closer, his expression softening. "Did you ever ask anyone in this compound to help you pay?" "No," she whispered. "I didn't want pity." He nodded slowly. Then, turning to his security team, he said, "Pay him." The crowd gasped again. "Pay who?" one woman whispered. Anderson pointed at Mr. Bello. "Give him 10 times what she owes." Mr. Bello's eyes widened. No, sir, Take it," Anderson said sharply. "And don't ever raise your voice to shame someone who's only trying to live with dignity." The head of security walked forward and handed Mr. Bello a brown envelope. The man took it with trembling fingers. His mouth opened, but no sound came. Then, quietly, he turned and walked away through the same gate, slower this time under the watching eyes of every tenant. Sophia couldn't move. Her tears were falling freely now. "You didn't have to do that," she said softly. "He was right. I did owe him." Anderson smiled faintly. "Yes. But kindness isn't about perfection, Sophia. It's about the heart behind what you give. You didn't owe me anything when you gave me food. Yet you gave it anyway." Her lips parted. She didn't know what to say. Around them, the crowd began to whisper again, but this time it wasn't gossip. It was awe. That night, Sophia couldn't sleep. She lay on her small bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment from the day she saw the beggar by the restaurant to the moment he stepped out of those black SUVs. It all felt like a dream she was too afraid to wake from. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Is greater than Anderson." "Are you awake?" She smiled softly and typed back. "È maggiore di Sophia." "Maybe. Anderson. I didn't mean to cause a scene." "Sophia. You didn't. You only surprised the whole street." Anderson. Typing. "Anderson. You surprised my heart first." She froze. Then slowly smiled wider than she had in years. Her fingers hovered over the screen before she typed back. "È maggiore di Sophia. Good night, Mr. Anderson." Anderson. "Call me Andy." Sophia. "Good night, Andy." She pressed her phone to her chest and closed her eyes. For the first time in a long while, her heart felt light. The next morning, rumors spread through the compound like wind through dry leaves. "Did you see that billionaire last night? I heard he's from one big company. They said he came back to marry the bank girl. No jar, she only gave him food. Can food buy love?" Sophia ignored them all as she left for work. But something deep inside her had changed a quiet courage she couldn't explain. When she got to her desk at the bank, she found a bouquet of white lilies waiting with a small card. Is greater than, to the woman who reminded me that kindness still exists. A. Her breath caught. She touched the petals, trembling slightly. The fragrance filled the small space around her. But what she didn't know was that her simple act of kindness had already made her the center of something far bigger than flowers, far bigger than gossip. Across town, in a boardroom lined with glass and gold, Anderson stood before his executives, listening as they presented numbers and projects. But his mind wasn't there. He kept seeing Sophia's face, the way her eyes softened when she smiled, the way her voice trembled when she said, "Why not?" "Sir," his assistant whispered, "are you okay?" Anderson blinked and nodded. "Yes, I'm fine." But he wasn't fine. For the first time in his life, business felt smaller than something else, something fragile and real. That night, he picked up his phone again. He wanted to call her, to ask if she had eaten dinner, to hear her voice one more time. But before he could, a call came in from his lawyer. "Sir," the lawyer said, "you need to be careful. Someone leaked photos of you in that disguise on the street. The media's starting to ask questions." Anderson froze. "What?" he said, standing. "Yes, sir. They're saying the CEO of Adeyemi Holdings was seen dressed as a beggar in Lagos. They're calling it the Billionaires Breakdown." He could almost hear the headlines forming. "Billionaire loses his mind. CEO pretends to be homeless." And worse. His chest tightened. He looked at the window where the city lights blinked. His secret experiment of finding true love, the one thing he had done to feel human, was now a rumor spreading like wildfire. And if the press got to Sophia, it could ruin her peace. He pressed his phone to his ear again. "Cancel all media interviews," he said firmly. "And prepare security for Oshodi. I need to see her. Tonight." The lawyer hesitated. "Sir, are you sure? It could make things worse." Anderson hung up before he could finish. He looked at his reflection in the glass wall. This time, he wasn't the billionaire CEO. He was the man who froze when kindness touched him. And he was going to protect the woman who gave it to him, no matter the cost. The following morning, Lagos woke up to chaos. Every news blog, gossip page, and social media feed screamed the same headline: "Is greater than billionaire CEO spotted begging on the streets of Lagos." Pictures flooded the internet. Anderson in his tattered brown coat, fake beard, and muddy shoes, holding a paper cup near the restaurant. Some photos were blurry, others painfully clear. Comment sections exploded. "Is greater than... Is this a movie or madness? Maybe he lost everything. Rich people now doing social experiment. That's the CEO of Adeyemi Holdings. My friend works there." By noon, his PR team's phones wouldn't stop ringing. Investors wanted answers. Reporters camped outside his office gate. And Anderson sat silently in his private office, staring at the computer screen. His disguise, the thing that helped him find Sophia, had become the world's newest joke. Meanwhile, in Oshodi, Sophia's phone wouldn't stop vibrating. She was in her small kitchen, trying to boil rice, when her friend Ngozi burst in, phone in hand. "Sophia, have you seen it?" "Seen what?" Sophia asked, confused. Ngozi thrust the phone into her face. Look at this." On the screen was Anderson's photo, disguised, dirty, and unrecognizable, yet unmistakably him. The caption read, "Is greater than the Billionaire Beggar. Why Anderson Adeyemi hid on the streets." Sophia's spoon fell from her hand. No, this can't be real." Ngozi widened her eyes. "Girl, you gave him food. You're the one he was talking to in that picture. You're trending too." Sophia blinked, speechless. "Trending?" "Yes, people are saying you're the girl who touched the billionaire's heart. Someone even posted a blurry picture of you holding the food." Sophia's knees nearly gave out. Oh God. Her phone rang again, unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Hello." "Don't panic," came Anderson's voice, low and calm. "Stay inside, I'm coming." "Coming?" "Anderson, the news." "I know, I'll explain everything." Click. The line went dead. An hour later, the familiar black SUVs rolled into her compound again. Only this time, dozens of people followed them, neighbors, reporters, even random passers-by with their phones out. The security men stepped out first, parting the crowd like waves. Then Anderson appeared, not in a suit this time, but in a simple white shirt and dark jeans. No beard, no disguise, just himself. The murmurs grew louder. That's him, the billionaire beggar. He came back for her. Sophia's heart raced. She stepped outside her doorway, trembling. Anderson's eyes found hers immediately. We need to talk, he said softly. Inside her small living room, the tension was thick. She stood by the window, he stood by the door. The sounds of shouting journalists bled through the walls. So it's true? She asked quietly. You really are that man? He nodded. Yes. I am Anderson Adeyemi, and I disguised myself because I was tired of people loving my money and not me. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. So the day I met you, he stepped closer. You didn't see a billionaire, Sophia. You saw a person. And that's what froze me. For the first time, someone cared without asking for anything back. Her tears fell. But now everyone knows. They'll think I did it for fame. They can think what they want, he said firmly. I know the truth. And soon, so will they. She shook her head. You don't understand. This place, these people, they'll never let me rest. My name is everywhere now. Even my bank called me today. Customers are asking if I'm your fiancé. Anderson took a deep breath, guilt flickering in his eyes. Then let me fix this. Later that evening, he called for an emergency press conference at his headquarters. The building's courtyard overflowed with reporters, flashing cameras, and curious citizens. Sophia stood quietly beside him, dressed simply in a navy blue gown. The same girl who once gave away her food now stood before the whole country. Anderson faced the cameras. His voice was steady. I know many of you are wondering why I disguised myself as a beggar, he began. For years, I have built companies, signed million-dollar deals, and been called a genius by people who never knew me. But when you have everything and still feel alone, you start to question what rich really means. The crowd was silent. I wanted to know if genuine kindness still existed in a world where everything has a price. So I went out in disguise, hungry, dirty, and ignored. For 3 days no one cared. Until a young woman named Sophia shared her only meal with me, without knowing who I was. He turned to her gently. She saw a stranger and gave, while others turned away. That moment changed me. Sophia looked down, tears brimming. The crowd's murmurs softened. Anderson continued. I didn't disguise myself because I was losing my mind. I did it because I wanted to find my heart, and I found it in her kindness. The reporters' flashes lit the courtyard like lightning. Questions flew, but Anderson raised a hand. That's all I'll say for now, he said. But I hope this teaches one thing sometimes: the poorest people are the richest in love. He guided Sophia through the crowd, ignoring the shouts of, Are you two dating? And is she the next Madame Adeyemi? When they reached the car, Sophia turned to him. You didn't have to do that. Yes, he said softly. I did. The world needed to know the truth, not about me, but about you. She smiled weakly. And what happens now? Anderson looked out the window as the convoy began to move. Now, he said quietly, you start living the life you deserve. But life, especially when fame arrives overnight, doesn't wait for peace. By the next day, Sophia's quiet world had changed completely. Her compound was filled with journalists. Her office at the bank received so many calls that her manager told her to take a temporary leave. Even strangers began sending her money and gifts, calling her Nigeria's kindest woman. At first, it felt flattering. Then it became overwhelming. By evening, she sat alone in her room again, phone buzzing with messages she didn't want to read. She had dreamed of a better life, yes, but not like this. Not a life where her kindness became a headline. Just as she was about to switch off her phone, another message came from Anderson. Is greater than Anderson. Can I see you tomorrow? It's important. Her heart skipped. Is greater than Sophia. What's wrong? Anderson. Nothing's wrong. I just have something I need to ask you in person. Sophia stared at the message for a long moment. Something inside her said tomorrow would not be an ordinary day. The next morning came with bright sunlight and soft wind, the kind that made the sky look cleaner. At exactly 10 a.m., Anderson's convoy pulled up again, but this time there were no reporters. No noise, just him. Sophia stood outside waiting, her hands folded nervously. Anderson stepped out, holding something small behind his back. "Good morning," he said gently. "Good morning," she replied. "What's going on?" He smiled. "I told you before. Your kindness changed my life, and now I want to change yours." She frowned. "Anderson, what are you talking about?" He took a step closer and revealed what he'd been hiding, a small envelope with her name printed neatly on it. "I want you to join my company," he said. "Not as a favor, but as someone I trust. You'll start as an assistant account officer." Sophia blinked, speechless. "Me? Work for you?" He nodded. "You have the heart I want in my business. Integrity can't be bought, it's lived." Tears filled her eyes again, but this time they were tears of joy. I don't know what to say." "Say yes," he said softly. She smiled through the tears. Yes. And for the first time since everything began, Sophia felt that maybe, just maybe, her kindness had found its way home. But as the convoy drove her to her first day at Adeyemi Holdings the next morning, something waited inside the building that neither of them saw coming. A face from Anderson's past. A plan that could destroy everything they were beginning to build. And when Sophia walked into her new office, that face was already smiling at her. Sophia's first day at Adeyemi Holdings began with nervous excitement. The glass doors glided open to reveal a sleek, modern office filled with polished floors, soft music, and employees who spoke in gentle tones that hid ambition sharp enough to cut. Her heart pounded as she stepped in, a girl from Oshodi, now walking among millionaires. Anderson had told her, "Just be yourself. That's the reason you're here." She held on to those words like a prayer. A young woman in a crisp red suit approached her. "You must be the new assistant account officer," she said, voice smooth as honey but cold underneath. "I'm Linda, the chief accountant." Sophia smiled warmly. "Yes, Ma, it's nice to meet you." Linda's eyes narrowed. "So, you're her, the famous Sophia, the one who made the boss fall in love." The words stung, but Sophia stayed polite. "I'm just here to work hard, Ma." Linda's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Of course you are." She turned sharply. "Follow me." Throughout the day, Sophia noticed the whispers. Whenever she passed, heads bent close, laughter followed. "That's her," someone whispered. "The Billionaires charity project." Another voice added, "She'll be gone once he gets bored." By lunch, she sat alone at a corner table, pretending to scroll through her phone. The excitement that had filled her earlier was fading fast. Meanwhile, in his top-floor office, Anderson watched through the glass wall overlooking the lower floors. His assistant had warned him. "Sir, Linda seems uncomfortable with the new hire," the assistant said carefully. Anderson frowned. "Linda is one of our best accountants. She'll adjust." But Linda wasn't adjusting. She was plotting. That night, she called someone quietly from her office. "Yes," she whispered. "The girl started today. Don't worry, I'll handle it. She won't last a week." The voice on the other end chuckled darkly. "Good. The boss needs a reminder of where his loyalty should be, the company, not some street girl." Linda hung up and smiled to herself. The next morning, Sophia arrived early, only to find her desk covered in torn papers and spilled coffee. Her computer password had been changed and her logbook was missing. Her chest tightened. She bent down to clean, but her hands shook. That's when Linda walked in, feigning surprise. "Oh dear, what happened here?" I don't know," Sophia stammered. "It was like this when I came." Linda sighed. "You need to be careful, Sophia. This company doesn't tolerate mistakes. I'll report this to management." Sophia's throat closed. She could only whisper, "Please, Ma, it wasn't me." Linda's lips curled slightly. "Then prove it." Anderson arrived later that morning, but before Sophia could explain, Linda was already in his office, twisting the story. "Sir," Linda said smoothly, "your new hire misplaced sensitive files on her first day. I suggest we reconsider her position before something worse happens." Anderson's jaw tightened. "That doesn't sound like her." Linda smiled faintly. "Emotions make us blind, sir." He said nothing. But as he looked out the window at Sophia, below quietly picking up the pieces of her ruined desk, something inside him began to boil. The morning sun slanted through the wide windows of Adeyemi Holdings, painting the marble floor gold. But the brightness didn't reach Sophia's heart. She sat quietly at her desk, eyes red from a sleepless night. Every whisper around her stung. "She's getting fired today," Linda reported her. Guess the billionaire finally saw the truth. Anderson hadn't spoken to her since the chaos began. His sudden silence hurt more than the rumors. Just before noon, she was called upstairs. "Mr. Anderson wants to see you," a guard said gently. Sophia rose, her legs trembling. As she entered the grand office, she saw Anderson by the window, hands behind his back, face unreadable. Linda stood nearby with a tablet in hand, pretending to look professional, but wearing a hidden smirk. Anderson turned slowly. "Sophia, there's been a serious accusation," he began. "Company files were misplaced from your system yesterday. Do you know anything about this?" Sophia's voice broke. "Sir, I swear I didn't do it. I came early, and everything was already destroyed." Linda cut in sharply. "That's what guilty people say, sir. Look, the system logs show her account accessed the files." She turned her tablet toward him, displaying fake screenshots she had planted the night before. Anderson frowned. "Sophia?" Tears streamed down Sophia's face. "Sir, please. Someone changed my password. I couldn't even log in." Linda scoffed. "Convenient excuse." Silence, long and painful. Then Anderson spoke softly. "Linda, leave us for a moment." Her smile faltered. "But sir," I said, "leave." She hesitated, then stormed out, her heels clicking angrily against the floor. When the door shut, Anderson turned to his desk, opened a drawer, and pressed a button. A quiet beep followed the sound of a hidden surveillance recorder activating. He turned the screen toward Sophia. "I had a feeling something wasn't right," he said. "Every department's activity is backed up on a private server." He tapped a key. A video appeared, security footage from the accounting office at 9:42 p.m. the previous night. Linda. She was on the screen, sneaking into the workspace, plugging a flash drive into Sophia's computer, typing quickly, and then deleting several files. Sophia gasped, covering her mouth. Anderson looked up, anger flashing in his eyes. "She thought she could lie to me," he said. "But I trust my instincts, and I trust you." The door burst open. Linda froze on the threshold as she saw the video replaying, her face drained of color. "Security," Anderson said coolly. "Escort her out." The guard stepped forward. Linda tried to explain, tried to plead, but it was useless. Within seconds, she was gone. Sophia stood still, overwhelmed. "You believed me, even when everyone doubted." Anderson walked closer. "I didn't just believe you, Sophia. You reminded me what belief means." He paused, eyes softening. "You changed me. The man you met by the restaurant was lost. The man standing here found something real because of you." Her tears came again, but this time they carried joy, not pain. Anderson took her hands gently. "I came into your world as a beggar looking for kindness, but I found a queen who gave it without knowing she was one." He went down on one knee, just like that night in Oshodi. Only this time, it wasn't dust beneath them, it was marble that reflected the light of everything they had been through. "Sophia," he said softly, voice shaking, "you didn't just feed a stranger. You fed my soul. Will you marry me?" The office fell silent. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. Sophia pressed her hands to her lips, trembling. "Yes, yes, Anderson, I will." Applause broke out as staff peeked through the door. Some were crying, some were cheering. A few months later, the city of Lagos buzzed with one of the most beautiful weddings it had ever seen. The bride, once a simple bank worker from Oshodi, walked down the aisle in white, her smile brighter than the chandeliers that glittered above. When she took the microphone to give her speech, her voice quivered. "I met him when I had nothing but a pack of jollof rice and a bottle of water. My mother used to say, 'Kindness has a way of coming back.' I didn't understand her until now. That simple act of kindness brought me love, peace, and a future I never dreamed of." The crowd stood, clapping and wiping tears. Anderson looked at her, pride glowing in his eyes. "You gave when you had little. Now we'll give to others together." They smiled at each other, the billionaire who once disguised as a beggar, and the orphan whose kindness changed his world. Because sometimes true wealth isn't counted in money, but in hearts that choose to love without reason. If you like this story, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.